I've had the chance to see you teach. It's very exciting. And what I particularly like about what you do is that you are so on it with the interpersonal neurobiology, kind of more of the modern attachment stance. It's very updated. But can you tell us a little bit of how's your thinking changed as a couples therapist? What kinds of things have you incorporated? What does that look like?
I'm very PACT informed. As people know, a lot of my early training was with Dr. Stantatkin.
And can you say what PACT is?
Yes, PACT is a psychobiological approach to couples therapy. And Dr. Stantatkin was instrumental in weaving in some neuroscience understandings and modern attachment understandings into couples therapy, which was very helpful. And so it changed how couples therapy is practiced in many ways. What used to be a more didactic, psychoeducational, conversational kind of method became much more practice-oriented and experiential. And so I'm definitely informed by PACT. My work prior to being a therapist was living in villages and studying indigenous healing systems. And so for me personally, I've put that neuroscience understanding and methodology into that context. And I think a lot about the existential nature of relationships, not just the neuroscience, but the experience of being in relationship is such an existential one. It's a very spiritual event in people's lives. What does it mean to share life with somebody else? What does it mean to be fully present with someone? What does it mean to give and receive love? And so my work always has this sort of spiritual side to it. And I've been able to meld that with neuroscience. And as there's this really interesting cross-section of the science of connection, along with ancient spiritual understandings about what it means to be human.
So say more about the ancient spiritual understandings.
Spiritual schools around the world for a long time have tried to help us understand that we're not just individuals, we're connected to it all. And in order to find peace in our minds and our hearts, we have to understand ourselves not just as independent people, but in terms of how we're connected to others and how we're connected to our environment. And relationship is really the proving ground for that. Are we willing to give up a little bit of our individuality in order to merge with someone and create a shared reality? So to me, it's very similar to meditation. Are you willing to give up a little bit of your thinking and analytical mind in order to experience more peace and connection in your heart? Relationship is a kind of meditation, even though it's a very active one, that requires much the same thing.
I love that it's a kind of meditation. The idea of secure functioning couples, a lot of times we think of that as they are doing a certain thing versus really what security is an experience. It's a feeling, and it's a co-created experience between two people. And I think that's some of what you're getting at with this.
Absolutely. If you look at how advanced couples tend to operate, they tend to the process more than the outcome. They're less communication focused and they're more interaction focused. What that means is they're tracking moment by moment and they're attuned. So if something goes off in the process, they can handle it in real time. Whereas dysfunctional couples tend to not do that. They just go on, try to make their point, regardless of what the interaction feels like. So I think when we're mindful and we're in the present moment, we can much better take care of each other's nervous systems and make sure that safety and security is being developed into the relationship.
So can you give an example then of that you have a couple in front of you and there is just some of the drive to be heard or drive to understand that they're caught, they're in the content, what happens?
So most people think you have to have good communication to connect. Those of us that understand the nervous system would say you need to have good connection to communicate well. It's the opposite of what most people think. So if I have a couple in my office and they're arguing about money or parenting or cleanliness, their idea of connection is resolving the dispute, trying to bridge their differences, and also using decent communication skills as they go. But none of that really solves the underlying issue, which is that they may not trust each other very much or feel connected or emotionally safe enough for the goodwill to overcome the difference they're trying to manage. So we understand that as therapists, but I think that concept is something that more people need to understand. Is the way you interact is what elicits the goodwill that lets you bridge differences. So you can't argue your way to a shared parenting strategy. You can't argue your way into bridging your personality differences. You have to be in the moment and have a secure process, really watch each other, take care of each other in the moment. When you do that, you create the goodwill that allows those differences to exist without being threats to the relationship.
That's a heavy lift when you do that. So I'm curious, like, how do you get in? The person is going and you're interrupting them, and just to give people a real feel for it.
Sure. So, as a therapist, what I try to do is not interrupt their conversation too much, but just toss things in that they have to adapt to that will hopefully make their interaction more secure. So, if they're looking at each other and they're arguing about some difference, I might just say to one person, "What do you see on your partner's face? What do you notice in their tone of voice? What do you see in their body language?" And this is a packed method to help people be more aware of other when they're upset and when they're stressed so that they continue to live in a two-person psychology. So what that does is it reminds people, oh, the moment matters, the interaction matters. If my partner looks stressed or annoyed or frustrated, why am I still going on and talking about this thing I was talking about? So in that way, people practice being more process focused and less outcome focused. And this is something we can all do in our personal relationships. So if you're not a therapist, you can practice this anytime you talk to someone. You can just have the focus of your mind be on, am I creating security in the process of how I'm speaking, my tone of voice, my facial expression, my eyes, my body, or am I just content focused? I'm just trying to make a point. Unfortunately, too many of us get lost in the content and we forget to communicate security in the process.